Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Utility Pokemon. This time we're going to be covering Johto. This guide is mainly for new players who have not beaten the 4th gym or unlocked the GTL, though there are helpful tips for everybody. Most of the Pokemon on this list are going to be the ones to help maximize your ability to farm things and give you benefits early on in the game before you beat the 4th gym. If you missed my Kanto video, you can check out the top right corner or check in the description below and I'll have it linked. For the first section, we're going to look at Pokemon that can use Sweet Scent. Starting us off really early, the first Pokemon you can get when starting the Johto region that makes a really good utility Pokemon is Chikorita. As with a lot of grass-type Pokemon, they're excellent for catching others because they have moves like Sweet Scent that pull in a horde, and then Sleep Powder or Spore to put those Pokemon to sleep. A lot of people don't end up keeping their starters because of their baseline stats, which are all 15 in every stat, plus there's the issue with the neutral natures. A lot of people don't find this appealing and would rather catch that Pokemon so that they can breed it or build upon the stats. With this in mind, you could very easily use Chikorita for early farming. This could be for catching other Pokemon or for summoning hordes to grind and do EV training, which is really important even early on. You can check in your Pokedex if you've been catching everything like I suggested in my first video, and you can check what EVs each Pokemon gives in an area. EV training can be really beneficial to help you get through the gyms and the trainers, as it gives your Pokemon a really great boost. Now, the moveset may not be great for Chikorita, but as we level it, it will evolve into a Bayleaf at level 16 and then a Meganium at level 32, which is also whenever it can learn Sweet Scent. This would be around Gym 3. So it may not give you a lot of time before you're able to unlock the GTL, but it can give you a little bit of a head start on hordes and training. Meganium may not be the best choice for the story part of it and gym runs, as it has major weaknesses to Flying, which is the first gym, Bug, the second gym, and Ice-type moves, which would be the 7th gym. However, there are a good amount of Pokemon to catch early on for taking on the story. This one would be really good for utility once it levels up. Moving on, we have Blossom, which I covered a little bit of in the Kanto video, but since Blossom is actually a Johto edition, I'm going to go ahead and cover it here. Blossom is evolved from a Oddish. It will be around level 12 to 14, and pretty underrated for early game, at least in my opinion. Oddish may have lower stats starting out, but it does get a decent amount of moves that are useful when catching other Pokemon. At level 8, it can learn Sweet Scent. This means you can catch it and it may already know the move. At level 14, it learns Sleep Powder. So this gives you a catching Pokemon all before level 20. At level 21, Oddish evolves into Gloom, and afterwards it can be turned into a Blossom with a Sunstone, though you won't be able to get this item till later on. Blossom is a great Pokemon for catching others and could be a good choice if you're saving up for a Smeargle. Blossom's highest stat is going to be its special defense. The next is its defense. So this makes a great Pokemon with decent bulk to be able to get the moves off. It doesn't have much in speed, so I would recommend trying to get a higher speed Ivy and maybe building some in the EVs in order to pop off the really quick Sleep Powders or other moves. Another great stat you could build upon is its special attack, which it also has very high in. It's actually its 3rd highest base stat. For the nature, I would recommend things that build upon those. Even as an Oddish, I would look for these stats and start building for the final evolution that you're looking for. Next up, we have a Pokemon I'm just going to briefly mention because overall it's not a great option, but you can make do with it until you get further in the game. We're going to talk about Hoppip and its evolutions. Now, Hoppip may not be the very best for storyline, but it is good at putting other Pokemon to sleep and will do in a pinch. Hoppip's 2nd highest base stat is going to be its speed. Knowing this, I would try to get one with a high speed IV to give it a little bit more boost early on. They're commonly found on Route 33 during the in-game morning daytime, but can be found as early as Route 29 and 30. At level 18, it's going to evolve into a Skiploom boosting its speed up a little bit. The special attack and attack will still be pretty bad, but we're focusing on status moves that it can do, so these don't actually matter that much. By this time, it can have learned Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, and Synthesis. At level 27, it evolves into a Jump Loom, giving it one last decent jump in its base speed attack. This will be useful when using Sleep Powder or status moves at the beginning of a Pokemon battle. Its evolutionary line do not naturally learn Sweet Scent, which is a real bummer and why it's not going to be covered as much as the others. However, it can learn it through TM. The TM for Sweet Scent can be found at the Goldenrod department store, which I believe is around Gym 3. So it can be a useful Pokemon to make do with, but there are a lot better options between moves and stats such as Oddish. Lastly, I'm going to mention that Smeargle does have a build that is great for catching other Pokemon or for alpha training, but honestly, Smeargle is such a versatile Pokemon, I'm going to cover him at the end. Moving on, we're going to look at our money makers. So these are Pokemon that have the ability Frisk, Pickup, or can learn Thief, Covet, and Payday. I'm going to skip over the ones that have their hidden ability as Pickup or Frisk, as this would be much harder to find in the wild, and it might not be worth it for a lot of new players. Just to mention them real quickly though, these Pokemon are going to be Cinerette in its evolutions, and Yama and Yanmega. I already extensively covered Meowth in my Kanto video, so even though he can be found in Johto and is a very popular Pokemon for making money, I'm going to skip over him here. If you want more information on a Meowth build, please go check out my Kanto utility Pokemon video. I go over different ways to build him up for optimal use for beginner players. Moving on, we're going to look at Stantler, who can be found on Route 36. The encounter rate is uncommon, but if we move to Route 37, it becomes very common. In these two areas, this Pokemon will be around level 15 to 18. Side note, you can go into this area to get 3 apricorns that will respawn daily. These are really good for selling, but also useful for making Pokeballs. Stantler has a chance to have Frisk, or he'll have Intimidate as his abilities. For the purpose of making money, we want Frisk. If you can, you should try to get one that at least has Hypnosis, as it will help give you a backup option for catching Pokemon, and could make it easier to use Thief. Stantler has a pretty decent speed, but is lacking in the terms of defense. Luckily, most types aren't super effective against him, except for fighting. Good stats for this Pokemon would be speed and attack, just like most Pokemon on this list. Natures that correspond with boosting those stats would be best. Just watch out to make sure you're not lowering the other stat. Next, I'm going to be looking at one of the highest contenders that rival Meowth or Munchlax. All three of these Pokemon have pretty low stats, but Teddiursa has a better stat in speed than Munchlax. It also has a higher base attack and special attack than Meowth. You can find Teddiursa on Route 45, though it is uncommon, it still has a decent catch rate. It will be around level 34 to 36. For this Pokemon, its speed and attack stats will be the most important if you're wanting to one-shot other Pokemon or use it as a Thief Pokemon. If it is being solely utilized for the purpose of pickup, this isn't as important, as the ability works as long as you have the Pokemon first in your party and it is alive at the end of the battle. For the budget and practical builds, you want to have Teddiursa with a high speed, attack, and special attack. A 31 would be best in speed or attack, speed being the more important of the two. However, if you can't get one with a 31, I would go for at least 25 in attack and no lower than 28 in speed if you're looking for a build that doesn't have any 31s. This may take some time to achieve, but it is possible, which is why I'm covering it here. Teddiursa is also able to learn Sweet Scent at level 17, so this could be used as a pickup, thief, or Sweet Scent Pokemon. This makes it the most versatile of the three main pickup Pokemon, though you will need to purchase the TM for Thief in order for it to learn it. As for natures, Mild is the most recommended. It boosts special attack, but this would be builds that have TM moves. Most of the moves that Teddiursa learns naturally are going to be physical attacks, so I personally would go for a nature that boosts attack or a neutral nature to play it safe. Natures that boost speed and defense would also be a good option as long as they aren't taking away from attack or speed. Though this Pokemon is one of the most popular for pickup, the optimal builds, even at a budget-friendly level, aren't exactly beginner-friendly, as it can be quite costly for the TMs and for the Pokemon with 31 IVs. Moving on, another Pokemon that's going to be a little bit harder to get is going to be Aipom. Aipom falls short in most base stats compared to Teddiursa, except for speed. Also, you would need to use Headbutt to find it, but it can be found on Route 30, 31, 34, 37, 43, the Ilex Forest, and the Lake of Rage. Its levels can be anywhere from 4 to 28. This is a much better range of opportunity to find the Pokemon, even if you have to use a move to find it. Aipom can have Pickup or Runaway for its abilities. For the purpose of making money, you want Pickup. In terms of base stats, Aipom has an excellent base speed, and it's his highest base stat. Though it's lacking in defense, its secondary highest base stat is going to be its attack. With Pickup Pokemon, you need them alive at the end of the battle and them in the first party slot. With this in mind, the lack of moves for Aipom isn't too concerning, as it can learn Baton Pass at level 11. With its high base speed, and if it has high speed IVs, Baton Pass is going to let you get this Pokemon out of the way for somebody more sturdy to come in. Unfortunately, Aipom is another Pokemon that only learns Thief via TM. However, buffing up its defense and attack could give it the edge to get Thief off without being KO'd. Thief is a physical move, so you would want a good attack stat for it to be more effective in damaging the other Pokemon. I would recommend an attack, defense, or speed boosting nature for this Pokemon, as long as the stats listed here are not being affected. As always, non-stat boosting natures are a safe bet for those who may be concerned with stat altering natures. Though Aipom is not normally listed, I feel like it could be a very good early on pickup and possibly thief Pokemon, depending on how you build it. Next up on our pickup and money making list, we have the Pokemon who might have the worst base speed of any Pokemon, including Slowpoke. That's right, we're talking about Munchlax. Another issue other than just its speed attack is going to be the fact that it's harder to find, possibly the hardest in the list so far. All of its locations have rare encounters, and it would require Headbutt. But it can be found at the Pokeathlon Dome, Safari Zone, and the Safari Zone Gate. This does make this Pokemon less practical for the list, but as it is one of the most popular options, I'm covering it. Munchlax has the ability Pick Up and can learn the move Payday and Covet, which is like Thief, where it takes an item from the opponent. All around, it rivals Meowth in its ability to gather items as well as get you money from battles. As with most Pokemon on this list, you would want to focus on the attack and speed stat for your Munchlax. With it having such an abysmal speed, it's going to need all the help it can get. A perfect IV in speed as well as EV training may be required for this Pokemon, as well as EV training it in its speed stat. This would be if you plan on using it as a payday or thieving Pokemon, since it would need to move quickly. Covet is learned at level 12, but Payday is going to be taught via TM. The recommended natures for this Pokemon are generally Jolly or Adamant. Overall, this Pokemon can be really great for Pickup, Payday, or Covet, but I don't think it's a very viable option for new players who don't have access to the GTL or a ton of money to spend to build one up. Real quick, I would like to thank you for watching this far into the video. You guys are so amazing, and y'all mean so much to me. Thank you so much. If you're new here, please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and that way you can see the other regions as well as my new content. As with the Kanto video, I'm going to be doing a giveaway, so make sure to watch the end of this video, that way you can find out how to be entered. Alright, moving on. Last on the list, we have the most popular, Smeargle. This Pokemon is more of an endgame Pokemon after you have defeated all of the gyms and already have access to the GTL. However, due to the versatility and popularity of this Pokemon, I'm going to be covering it here as a catch Pokemon and touch on builds for Thief and Payday. Smeargle is a special Pokemon that can learn any move due to its sketch ability. However, it does have generally low stats and can have survivability issues depending on the build you're going for. First, we're going to look at its build for catching other Pokemon. When focusing on the ability to catch other Pokemon, we need to focus on our HP, attack, and speed stats. The best option for a Smeargle of probably any build would be 5 times 31 stats. That means having a 31 in 5 of its stats. Special attack being the random IV that you don't have to have 31 in unless you're using a lot of special attack moves. but at a minimum, you would want a very high HP, attack, and speed for this Pokemon. Adamant Nature is regarded as the best for this type of build, and generally Technician is thought to be a good option for the ability. I think either ability is just fine though. The moveset you would want to focus on when trying to catch other Pokemon would be False Swipe, Spore, Substitute, and Soak. This can be an excellent option for alpha catching for anyone who can't afford a completely built up Breloom. If you would like to use it for pulling in hordes, which is commonly used for shiny hunting or for training, you could switch Substitute out for Sweet Scent. When you have the horde down to the one Pokemon you're wanting to catch, that is when you send out your Smeargle, who has a perfect moveset to put it to sleep, knock it down to 1 HP without KOing it, and then you're able to catch it. At least hopefully. This build, when having Substitute, is very popular for Ditto catching, as Substitute prevents Ditto from transforming, but be careful the Ditto doesn't run out of PP and then KO itself using Struggle. Leftovers are a great item to pair with this Pokemon, so it gets health back each turn, especially if you have Substitute on it, as this move does damage Smeargle. There's a lot of Sweet Scent builds, some of them having different attacks that would attack all the enemies in a horde, which is known as AoE moves. So other options you could give it instead of False Swipe would be Earthquake, Surf, Eruption, Water Spout, Discharge, or Hyper Voice, as all of these are AoE options. Some people also add Teleport to their Smeargle, so it is multifunctional as a Sweet Scent Pokemon, as well as a Teleport Pokemon, which is going to take you back to the last Pokemon Center you were at. There's a ton of ways you can build your Smeargle, and there's even ones for specific shiny hunting that would give you a different moveset based upon the Pokemon you're hunting. I'm going to link some spectacular guides in the description that give you a more in-depth guide and some advanced options for the various builds. Huge shout out to DragoTamer and Bestfriends on the Poke Forum, both of whom spend a lot of time to provide everybody with absolutely incredible guides, and I just want to thank them. They put a lot of time and effort into making these really beautiful guides, and I highly recommend you check them out. Those are going to be some of the top utility Pokemon in the Johto region. Unfortunately, we didn't have that many this time that are beginner friendly, but we did have some really great options for in-game. Thank you so much for watching and continuing to support my channel. It means so much to me to have started so soon and have so many amazing followers. Just like in the Kanto video, I want to do a giveaway. Comment below your favorite Pokemon from this list. The level will be starter range, so the evolution of the Pokemon may be based on the form at specific levels, but it will give you an excellent Pokemon for starting your journey. All giveaway Pokemon are going to have 2 perfect IVs, and I'm going to try really hard to get the best moveset and abilities on there, though the moveset will depend on when it can learn those moves. Again, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to your comments and seeing you in the next video. Until next time, keep being the best Pokemon masters there are out there. Bye!